I just want to say I really appreciate the effort on colleagues on both sides of the aisle. As someone who serves on the Education Committee, I commend Ms. Nolan. I know that she's taking a hard swallow on this. She does not want to put this bill through, I'm sure, in her heart, but she's doing what she feels like she has to do. I thank Mr. Farrell, Mr. Levine for commenting on our ethics today. But this is my 5th year in the Assembly, and each year I voted against the education portion of the budget because each year I listened to a number of school districts. I have some 37 in my very nice long district that I have now, but I've represented up to 8 counties as a member of the State Assembly. I think more than many have. And in those years, I've listened to educators, parents, administrators. Everyone has come and said, we need to fundamentally reform our school aid formula. It is complicated, it's difficult, it's unfair, and we still, in this budget language, have failed to fundamentally reform our school aid formula. And to me, that's code or a signal for corruption. There's room for somebody to pull a sleight of hand on that. And when my colleague says, this is the hand we've been dealt, when we've been dealt a hand by a person whose only issue is to find a soundbite to beat out the substance, I think that that's not a hand that we should be dealing with. We're not dealing with a fair deck of cards. I grew up in an area where I went to public schools. My son went to the same public school that I went to. He graduated from the same public school system. Believe it or not, I'm 30 years older, and he had some of the same teachers that I had in school. That says a lot about the consistency of our public schools and what a good job they do educating our students. I think it's a serious issue that we are now here trying to debate this bill under a message of necessity. And I object to that when it is such an important issue. We have not fundamentally transformed our school aid formula, which is one of the reasons I vote no every year. Yes, we got some more money this year. Some of the school districts did get a little bit more money, but we exchanged it for a fundamental downgrading of the integrity of our education system. We cannot afford to give up our education system to a state education department. I just object to that with every bit of cell in my body, that we're going to be giving this up to a group that has not been helpful to our school districts in the past. For that reason, another thing I want to mention is the school runs. And the fact that the governor is engaged in this bullying tactic and not giving out our school aid runs. This is something that our school districts rely on, and I think many people forget. The school districts, though we act like they're not accountable, are the ones that actually go to the voters every single year. You and I, as voters, not as members of the state legislature, get to vote on these school budgets. They are accountable to the voters in the most direct way in a democracy that you can be. We have to give them the credibility and give our voters the credibility in knowing what they're doing and not hand this over to the state education department. So, for that reason, I know in all these years past, I also, as a member of the State Assembly and also as a person who was here before when we had the late budgets, I always remember the governor coming in with, when it was a Republican governor or now it's a Democratic governor, the Assembly was always the House that came through and took care of public education. We were always, even in the past, back during the days of our prior governors of a different party, we were the House that always came through. And some of you have spoken up, and I know many of you probably are going to vote no and don't want to vote yes on this bill because you don't like the way it's what it's doing to our education system. But I want to quote somebody who I know means a lot to this body and who we've honored, and someone who I've actually written a paper about him in college. And his words always are very powerful in this, and we need to have the backs, and we need to be the friends of the people in education, our parents, our teachers, our administrators, everyone, our students especially. And I want to quote Martin Luther King. And this is his profound quote, and I feel like this quote applies today. And it says, "In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends." And for that reason, Mr. Speaker, I'll be voting in the negative.